Hi friends, I am Professor Kshitij Bansal. I teach law at Jindal Global Law School. The module that we are going to discuss today is Right to Sanitation, International Law and Policy. On July 2010, the UN General Assembly adopted a groundbreaking resolution officially recognizing sanitation, access to and use of excreta and wastewater facilities and services as a human right. United Nations statistics reveal that over 2.5 billion people lack access to adequate sanitation facilities, a primary cause of water contamination and diseases linked to water. According to UN Deputy General Jan Eliasso, poor sanitation and water supply result in economic losses estimated at $260 billion annually in developing countries. Sanitation is severely neglected in most countries, by governments and also by the people in some instances. In many countries, the number of toilets per inhabitant is generally inadequate, with no guarantee that they are hygienic to use. In many parts of the world, the absence of adequate sanitation has led to the widespread pollution of water sources that communities rely on for survival. To take an example, in India, the Yamuna River has been heavily polluted because of release of sewage and other industrial pollutants into the river. Some of the problems faced by children are malnutrition, lack of physical growth, mental disabilities, intestinal worm infections, and other excreta-related diseases. This module shall provide a brief overview of the right to sanitation under international law and the legal instruments that recognize sanitation as a basic human right. What will you be learning after listening to this briefing? The main objective of this module is to understand the legal instruments that recognize the right to sanitation as a basic human right. Secondly, this module shall also cover as to why access to sanitation is needed. It will thirdly discuss other events dealing with the promotion of sanitation as a human right. Let me introduce the module to you. The Subcommission on the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights defines the right to sanitation as the right of everyone to have access to adequate and safe sanitation that is conducive to the protection of public health and environment. In simple terms, sanitation can mean access to and use of excreta and wastewater facilities and services that ensure privacy, dignity, and ensuring a clean and healthy living environment for all. The United Nations estimates that about 2.5 billion people still lack access to improved sanitation, and 1.2 billion people practice open defecation. Over a quarter of the world's population has gained access to improved sanitation since 1990, yet 1 billion people still resort to open defecation due to lack of sanitation facilities. The Joint Monitoring Program uses the term improved sanitation, referring to the types of technology and levels of services that are more likely to be sanitary than unimproved technologies. To be sure, the proportion of the population without adequate provision decreased from 51% in 1990 to around 33% in 2001. East Asia has registered a 40% increase in sanitation coverage. The Millennium Development Goal Target 7 aims to halve by 2015 the proportion of people living without access to sanitation. This target remains the most off track of all the MDG targets. Even if the MDG targets were to be achieved in full, it is important to note that there will still be more than 800 million people without safe drinking water and 1.8 billion people without basic sanitation in the year 2015. The vast majority, 82% of people, practicing open defecation now live in middle-income populous countries. Lack of sanitation obstructs the right to life and health. Human excreta encourages the transmission of many diseases including cholera, typhoid, hepatitis, polio, cryptosporidiosis and ascariasis. Diarrhea, a disease directly related to poor sanitation, kills one child every 20 seconds. That is more than 4,000 children dying every day. This amounts to more deaths than AIDS, malaria and measles combined. It accounts for as many as a quarter of all under 5 deaths and is a serious threat to right to health. Poor sanitation facilities also have a severe effect on water quality and jeopardizes the enjoyment of this right too. However, water and sanitation do not enjoy the same status under international law. Yet in many instances and international declarations and commitments, including the MDGs, sanitation has been closely associated with the right to water. An increasing number of international, regional and national declarations and national legislations as well are now recognizing sanitation as a self-standing right. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on the issue of human rights obligations related to access to safe drinking water and sanitation, Ms. Caterina de Albuquerque has expressed her support for the recognition of sanitation as a distinct right. Let us now talk about various national laws which recognize this right. Given the fact that the international law is binding on the nations only in good faith, it is highly necessary that the nations enact their own legislations dealing with right to sanitation. Many countries are beginning to adopt such legislations. 8 countries specifically recognize the right to sanitation in their constitution, national legislation, or in their sanitation policies. These are Uruguay, South Africa, Honduras, Bolivia, Algeria, Bangladesh, Kenya and Sri Lanka. The laws of many countries include specific government obligations to ensure sanitation and hygiene. Examples include Colombia, Ecuador, Iran, Madagascar, Mauritania, Mozambique, Indonesia, Armenia and Ukraine. The Supreme Courts of India and Bangladesh have held that access to sanitation is a part of the right to life. In 2004, Uruguay became the first country to include an explicit guarantee of the human rights to water and sanitation in its constitution, stating in Article 47 that access to clean water and access to sanitation constitute fundamental human rights. The following countries make a reference to sanitation in their constitution: Dominican Republic, Maldives, Kenya, Ecuador, Zambia, Uruguay, Mexico, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela and Bolivia. Sanitation as a human right is an integral part of numerous human rights documents and has been identified under these rights in various treaties, political declarations, national constitutions and legislation, international and domestic case law and expert work. These include the rights to an adequate standard of living, adequate housing, health, education, water, work, life, physical security, prohibition of inhuman or degrading treatment, gender equality and prohibition against discrimination. There are still 46 countries where less than half the population has access to an improved sanitation facility. This part discusses the resolutions passed by United Nations bodies with regards to sanitation. UNGA Resolution 64292. In its 64th session on 3rd August 2010, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution 64292, which recognized right to safe and clean drinking water and sanitation as a human right that is essential for the full enjoyment of life and all human rights. By a vote of 122 in favor of none against with 41 abstentions, General Assembly adopted the resolution calling on states and international organizations to provide financial resources, build capacity and transfer technology, particularly to developing countries, in scaling up the efforts to provide safe, clean, accessible, and affordable drinking water and sanitation for all. The delegate for the United States of America and the United Kingdom expressed their concerns about the resolution's impact on the full enjoyment of human rights. Both these nations therefore abstained from the voting process. The delegate for the United Kingdom warned that if current trends continued, the MDG on sanitation might not be met even until 2049. UNHRC Resolution 15/9. Following the UN General Assembly resolution, Resolution 15/9 was adopted by the United Nations Human Rights Council on 6 October 2010, and this resolution affirmed the right to water and sanitation and held that these rights are a part of existing international law and confirmed that these rights are legally binding upon states. Some of the human rights obligations that states have are as follows: availability, quality, physical accessibility, affordability, acceptability. Sanitation for all. UNGA Resolution A/67/L75, Sanitation for All Resolution, as it is popularly known as, was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in its 67th session on 17th July 2013. Over 100 UN delegates co-sponsoring the Sanitation for All resolution, including Bangladesh, Vietnam, Jamaica, and United Kingdom, were present there. The resolution calls for greater attention to be paid to the global sanitation crisis and also recognized 19th November as World Toilet Day. The resolution also urges all UN member states as well as the United Nations system to accelerate progress in order to achieve the MDGs related to sanitation. The resolution also recognizes the role that civil society and non-governmental organizations play in raising awareness of this issue. It also calls on countries to approach sanitation in a much broader context that includes hygiene promotion, the provision of basic sanitation services, and sewage and wastewater treatment and reuse in the context of integrated water management. Multinational companies, international organizations, schools, and other stakeholders are encouraged to redouble their efforts through scaled-up ground-level actions by way of action-oriented and other educational activities to promote greater public awareness of the serious developmental, health and social problems caused by the lack of adequate sanitation. The need for access to sanitation facilities is our next discussion topic. Sanitation is the key infrastructural component which is required to reduce the unacceptable heavy toll of excreta-related diseases. Sanitation, more than many other human rights issues, evokes the concept of human dignity, which is guaranteed by most constitutions around the world. It is the indignity of this situation that causes the embarrassment. In all regions and in almost all countries, sanitation provision lags far behind access to water, and there is no evidence that the gap is narrowing. Improved sanitation, which ensures separation of waste from human contact, is important as open defecation jeopardizes the health of the whole community, resulting in increased diarrheal diseases including cholera as well as worm infestations and hepatitis. According to a report, almost 50% of all people in developing countries are suffering at any given time from a health problem caused by lack of water and sanitation. Given the fact that the right to sanitation facilities has been recognized as a human right, the onus is on the states to ensure that all citizens are able to enjoy this right. The state cannot exempt himself from its human rights obligations by involving non-state actors in service provision. It may take assistance from NGOs for this task, but irrespective of the responsibilities of the latter, the state remains as the primary duty bearer for the realization of human rights. According to the World Health Organization, access to improved sanitation results in a 32% reduction of diarrheal diseases. According to a UNDP report published in 2006, improved access to sanitation would increase school attendance, especially for girls, and help school children to learn better. In the African nation of Tanzania, school attendance levels are 12% higher for girls in homes 15 minutes or less from a water source than in homes an hour or more away. On one estimate, about half the girls in sub-Saharan Africa who drop out of primary school do so because of poor water and sanitation facilities. In Uganda, only 8% of schools have sufficient latrines and just one-third have separate latrines for girls. Deficits that help to explain why the country has found it difficult to reduce dropout rates among girls after puberty. It is estimated that lack of access to water and sanitation results in 443 million lost school days each year because of water-related illnesses. In addition, girls can be prevented from attending school because of a lack of toilet or of girls-only toilets. Addressing issues related to water and sanitation could also have a major effect on the economies of many countries. Treating diarrhea-related diseases costs an estimated 12% of national health budgets in sub-Saharan Africa. There is also compelling evidence that sanitation as a public health intervention brings a significant return on investment. Hence, because of the following reasons, it is highly necessary that governments put in more efforts to ensure that every citizen enjoys his right to clean water and access to sanitation facilities. The investment put in such projects in turn benefits the nation's GDP, education system, and also improves the overall hygiene. International Year of Sanitation 2008. To put the spotlight on sanitation, the UN General Assembly declared the year 2008 as the year of international sanitation. The goal was to raise awareness and to accelerate progress towards Millennium Development Goal Target 7C, that is to reduce by half the proportion of 2.6 billion people without access to basic sanitation by 2015. The International Year of Sanitation provides an opportunity to draw attention to the needs of over one-third of global citizens for the most basic of services by promoting key messages concerning sanitation and to generate new resources to address the crisis at international, national and community levels. The 5 key messages of the International Year of Sanitation are as follows. Sanitation is vital for health. WHO estimates that 88% of diarrheal diseases across the world are caused by unsafe water and sanitation, leading to the death of about 1.8 million people, majority being children, annually. Also, people having no or limited access to sanitation can also develop kidney or liver problems and constipation as well as psychological trauma. Sanitation contributes to social development. Where sanitation facilities and hygienic behavior are present, rates of illnesses drop, malnutrition in children is reduced, more children, especially girls, attend school and learn better, and women's safety and dignity are also improved. Sanitation is a good economic investment. The United Nations Development Program estimates that every dollar spent on water and sanitation generates a return of $8 in reduced health costs and increased productivity. Sanitation helps the environment. Lack of sanitation facilities also affects the environment because the sewage is in most cases released directly into potable water sources. Improved sanitation facilities can lead to cleaner water sources and also will increase the total drinking water available. Sanitation is achievable. The cost of meeting the sanitation goal is estimated to be around $9.5 billion a year, which is affordable especially when there is a lot of support provided by other nations and also by bodies such as the World Bank and other multilateral development banks. To conclude, sanitation has been recognized as a basic right in both national and international legal regimes. National legal regimes in a number of jurisdictions have recognized sanitation as a right, beginning with Uruguay in the year 2004, when it provided for an explicit protection under the Constitution for the right to water and sanitation. Many countries followed that suit. Further, international legal instruments provide for sanitation as a right as well. Key United Nations General Assembly resolutions and United Nations Human Rights Council resolutions, along with some key treaties, recognize sanitation and water as fundamental human rights. MDGs further formalize the adoption of sanitation as a right in the broader policy framework amongst countries in an international framework and context. Thank you so much. I hope you've learned well enough from this briefing. Thank you.